A juror for Ghislaine Maxwell's felony sex trafficking trial testified that he did not lie when he failed to disclose past sexual abuse on a pretrial questionnaire. He simply, quote, made a mistake. Juror number 50 told a Manhattan District Court judge yesterday, quote, this was one of the biggest mistakes I have ever made in my life. I did not lie in order to get on this jury.
After Maxwell's conviction, juror number 50 told Reuters that he recalled his own experiences as a childhood sexual abuse survivor in order to ease other jury members' concerns about inconsistencies in the testimonies from some victims of Maxwell's. He said, quote, when I shared that, they were able to come around on the memory aspect of the sexual abuse, unquote. Juror 50 was questioned for an hour yesterday by a judge who did not indicate when she would decide whether to grant Maxwell's request for a retrial. And the reason I believe, not that it really matters, that this juror is telling the truth in having made a mistake is that if he purposely lied on the sheet, he would not then have gone out and given public interviews talking about how he had helped sway the jury based on a thing that he knew he had lied about on his questionnaire.
I mean, so, probably not, but...
What kind of a...
Well, I don't know. We don't know.
There's a lot of people.
He might not be a very smart person.
Okay, that's fair enough.
You know, he might be a kind of self-aggrandizing, reckless character.
That's certainly
didn't
possible.
Realize how this would come back to, or you could be right. I don't know.
It's
but
like a
either way,
50-page questionnaire where you're like, oh, jury duty. Oh my God. No. Yes. No. Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah. But
it's a mess.
It doesn't matter.
Huge mess.
That only matters. It
right.
doesn't matter at all because he was granted immunity for his testimony. So he's not getting charged with anything. So therefore, it doesn't matter whether he did it on purpose or not. For Ghislaine Maxwell, the only relevant fact here is that she and her lawyers were not privy to this information, which was on the sheet. You could say, like, hey, well, this isn't relevant. Well, it is relevant because it's on the questionnaire.
Right.
And they obviously would have
challenged
stricken him,
right,
or tried to strike him because she's accused of doing the thing that he was victimized with. So I'm not a judge, but it seems pretty clear that this is going to a new trial, no?
Yeah, I don't know how you could overlook this. I mean,
especially with him saying that he was instrumental in swinging the jury.
I know, he was bragging about how important it was.
Yeah.
And the exact thing that he used this to make the argument is so key to the inconsistencies in people's stories is generally something that if you're accused of a crime, your attorneys will try to exploit on your behalf because inconsistencies allow for acquittals. They they raise doubt. Reasonable doubt standard. So, but at least in the sort of new understanding or public understanding of how sexual misconduct works, I'm actually not totally in agreement necessarily with the activist belief, the victim's rights belief around this concept that it's like this crime and this crime alone, the inconsistencies are part of it and actually make it more likely if there are inconsistencies because they're so. I actually don't really know that I buy any of that, but it is very much part of the training and the activism around how victims of sexual misconduct behave, so that he was saying, in my experience, I had these inconsistencies because I suffered this and this is normal and expected, actually. You could see how that could play a very important role
because now you're voting
in getting a jury
to acquit
there.
His own, in some ways, you're voting to acquit his attackers.
Right.
In front of him.
Right.
Like vicariously by acquitting Maxwell.
Yeah, I don't know how you could reach any other conclusion but to give her a new trial. This is people rarely risk trials because the sentencing is so the success rate is astronomical for the prosecution. The sentencing is so severe, but every now and then you risk it, and it pays off because somebody screws up. This is just a mistake, genuine mistake. The harm of the false witness or something.
And the advantage then to the defense in the second trial is now they have insight both into what the prosecution has and doesn't have, but also into what created some doubt in the jury pool, the jurors themselves. And so in a second trial, they will go hard at all of these inconsistent memories.
Yeah, this is great for the defense. Obviously, it's great for the defense because the prosecution had won, and now the victory is being taken away, so that's bad. But it's also on second trial, retrial, great, always great for the defense. They the conviction rate drops precipitously.
And the prosecution will at least know they need multiple survivor advocates and / experts on the stand talking about memory issues. But then you make the central question in the jurors' minds the memory issues, and then that's where their reasonable doubt starts to seep back in. So maybe they come with a much better plea deal rather than roll the dice.
Yeah, that could be.
Because you don't want to be the prosecutor. Like, prosecutors care about scalps.
Yeah.
And
conviction rate. They want 99% conviction rate.
And moving up the political ladder.
If you screw up a high-profile case, that could end your career.
If you're the person who let Ghislaine Maxwell walk, forget it. You're done.
Yeah.
You're gonna be an associate partner at some like mid-level white shoe firm. You'll only make $600,000 a year. And
but you don't get to run for state attorney general.
Can't run for attorney general. People will murmur when you walk into the country club. It's just absolutely devastating to people. And so they might just say, you know what, let's cut our losses and plead this one out.
Yeah.
And then they can, because then at that point you can say, what are we supposed to do about this juror? Like, other lawyers will be like, by the grace of God.
Right. Yes, to be completely clear, the prosecution didn't really screw. This is not a fumble. They didn't do anything wrong. This person, I guess they said, read the questionnaire very, 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 very carefully next time.
Or don't brag.
But to have this person make a mistake, make a mistake, and then have that mistake be very important to jury deliberations, and then publicly explain that.
How important it was.
Man, people. I don't know. I tend to not read government forms very closely either, so maybe there, but for the grace of God, go I.
Oh, for sure.
And when I get jury summons in the mail, I just throw them out. Then my wife, who's a much more law-abiding citizen than I am, who works for the government, she doesn't like when I do that.
I got a grand jury summons. Thank God I was living in Vermont at the time, and I could prove it.
What was that?
It was a DC one.
Oh.
Because sometimes you get on these DC grand juries. That, like, jury duty in DC, fine.
Right.
Grand jury duty in DC could be months.
I mean, no one would ever put me on a jury as soon as, like, I don't even have to take the questionnaire. It would just be like, do you think the government has a right to exist? And I'll say no. This is all illegitimate.
Like, next.
Okay, bye.
This person's innocent.
I'm just gonna wear my like legalized heroin T-shirt or something. That'll be it for me. But next, we'll weigh in on the expanding list of Western corporations suspending their operations in Russia when Rising returns.